Where do I start? Um, for many of you may have noticed that I have been out of pocket the past couple months. And I think even more of you actually didn't know that I had lived in Asheville, North Carolina. And I could probably stop the video here and you would know what happened. And I wanted to come back and just share my experience of what took place, what I went through, where we are now, and what this all means. And hopefully, in my experience, you can learn something, and hopefully, it can inspire you to move forward in a way that levels up your life. You might have heard the phrase, "Your mess can become your message." Well, I solemnly believe that the mess that I experienced and that me and my family went through gets to be a message to help you elevate your life. So going back to that weekend of the hurricane, I'm not sure how many of you guys know, but there was a weather system that sat over Asheville the day or two before the hurricane that had dropped well over a foot of rain. And so that system before the hurricane came softened the earth. I could just call it that. And so when the actual hurricane came and dropped another couple feet of rain, then with the high winds, it created what it created. And you've seen enough to know what happened. And I can actually tell you, if you have not been to Asheville and you only watched the reels on Facebook and TikTok and you saw pictures, let me tell you, it's worse than that. The media did not need to embellish any of this. In fact, the media could do is put more coverage on the devastation and the long-term impact of this. It was bad. And in my experience, losing power to me wasn't a big deal. I've experienced power outages before. No big deal. Internet, it's fine. Losing water, losing communication channels, that's a whole different story. And while this was going on, my daughter also got the flu. And I had the flu the week before, and I was just recovering. And then my wife got the flu, and she was just recovering. And then my daughter had the flu in the middle of this, not being able to access what we needed when we needed it, when this came up, because we had just used all of our flu medicine. My car got damaged, and so it became undrivable. And fortunately, my daughter was fine. She healed, and we all healed. And so it was good. In the aftermath of the hurricane, I remember walking outside, and it was like sunny out. It was relatively warm, and it was kind of surreal. I was like, did anything really happen? And then you look around and you see the trees and the power lines, and where we were, there wasn't nearly as much devastation as it was in other places. I mean, we were 5 minutes away from Swannanoa, where there's parts of that area that are completely gone. And when I got to see that, then it really opened my eyes. Wow, this was really bad. And it could have stayed there. Like, I could have stayed in just how bad things were. But then I started to notice something completely different. And I started to see my neighbors and the community come together in a way that I had never seen. I mean, I got to meet neighbors, neighbors that I hadn't, met in over a year. I got to meet them during this time, and everyone was so generous and gracious and understanding and patient and loving toward one another in a way that I had never seen. And I mean, there were people who were driving around looking to see how they can help other people, whether it was chainsaw trees or get you food and supplies and water. And there are people leaving town and just giving their things that they had that were going to expire or perish, and just giving it away, not even thinking about it. I mean, it was incredible. And I remember sitting in my living room, and for whatever reason, the question came up, it was like, wow, we're so resilient as a society. Like, we know how to survive. And it dawned on me that that is true. We've been blessed with the ability to survive. This is why we are the apex species. It's built in our DNA. We don't need to prove to ourselves that we can survive. It is embedded in us. It's a God-given gift to be able to survive. But why do we stay there? Why is it in these moments that's when we see people come together? Because before then, all I saw was division. I saw people not liking each other, cutting themselves off from family and lives, not sharing, not loving, not understanding, not being patient, not being gracious, none of that. And all of a sudden, crisis happens and we all rally. It felt to me that we were stuck in this cycle of staying small, living in that survival and scarcity. And when it gets really bad, then we rally to get ourselves back to a basic form of survival and scarcity. And I was asking, I was praying and I was asking God, like, what does this mean? What do I take from this? And what I got was, we're born with a gift of survival. And just because we're born with that doesn't mean that that's where we get to stay. We're not here to just survive. We're not here to just make it, to just get by. We're here to expand. We're here to experience super abundance. We're here to experience and be prosperous and share that with other people. I wish I could see life where everyone's living prosperously and behaving the same way they did in times of crisis. And it really jarred me. It caught me by surprise, and I didn't know what to do with it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen with my family. What do? We don't have running water. Our food is running out, like access to things. While it appeared that we were receiving support, what really was happening was there wasn't enough support that was coming in. People will defend on the outside all they want. I can tell you from firsthand experience and the experience of those friends that I know, the support that we were supposed to receive did not actually come through. And it came through, I guess, what's the word? Sparsely. Not nearly enough people who actually needed the support got the support, whether it was from a local level and a governmental level. That's just the truth. Can't hide from it because I lived there and experienced it, and I've seen it through other people. People who lost their homes didn't even qualify for the $750. Like, what is that about? Like it made me really see that when we're in a situation where we actually need people to support us the way they have promised us, that doesn't really work out. And if you're not sure, checking on people who experienced Katrina back in 2006, I can be certain that there's going to be some people who still haven't received the support that they needed to help themselves rebound. And I'm not saying we need to rely on governmental support. I'm actually saying the opposite. This is actually an example of why I don't want to do that. Because when you need them most, chances are they don't come through. Insurance companies, when you need them most, they don't come through. I've seen too many examples of these things. I'm not saying that this is 100% true across the board, but it's enough for me to create cause for pause. And so I did what any other father, husband would do: assess the situation. And we were renting. We didn't own anything there, which is a very different experience for those who own and have a life there and have built many things there. Can't just walk away from that. We had the option to be able to do that. So we took it. I made the executive choice to do that and get ourselves into a safe environment where we don't have to worry about not having the basic needs. And I know that I'm very fortunate to have been able to make that decision and to have the option to do that. But it wasn't until getting out of that situation did I realize how bad it really was. Because when you're in it and you're surviving and you're making it work, your mind can trick you to believe that it actually is okay. Oh, this isn't so bad. We don't have water. It's not so bad. We were able to figure it out. We have bottled water, or we'll have this, or we have this, and we can get through today. Our brain can trick us in believing that we think that's okay, when in reality it's not. It's not okay to live that way. And so many people do. And sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's not by choice. But to me, that is not okay. So getting my family out there was top priority. We were able to do that. And it allowed us space to really sit and think about, what do we want to do moving forward? And I'll spare the details with all the things that we had to think about and what we went through. One of the things that I will say that we went through was we actually sat down, and prior to that, I was thinking, continuing to connect with God and asking him, like, what's the next move? What do you want me to see? What do you want me to learn? And one of the things that I saw was, I get to choose or decide. Let me rephrase that, because this is not a choice I'm making. It's a decision I'm making. So there's no other possibility. What do I want to decide the meaning of this to be? And one of the things that I realized was, being removed from the environment made me see how many things in my life and in the situation that we were living that wasn't working. And not many people get an opportunity to remove themselves from the environment and then look at that environment and make these type of observations, to become more aware of what's working and what's not. Usually when people leave, they go on vacation to get away from the environment, and that should be an indicating factor in realizing that maybe the environment that you're going away from isn't working. You should be looking forward to be coming and going wherever it is that you're coming and going from or to. Anyway, being removed from the environment, we see that things weren't working. And if I were to see this event as a literal and figurative purification, where it was able to wipe and wash away everything that I knew to be true about what makes life work. And I just assumed that everything was broken and was gone. And I got a chance to have a clean slate to rebuild and redesign my life. What would it look like if I built it at the highest level? What would it look like if I only saw it through the lens of prosperity and abundance and peace? And I started to really feel into this. And it made me realize that there were so many areas in my life where I was accepting of the minimum standard that was not prosperous, that was not abundant, that was just in scarcity and just getting by, putting Band-Aids on solutions that required much more intention. We've all gone through this type of situation before. Think about the last time that you changed your life or changed an area of your life. At first, you thought that that area was working, and then you realized it wasn't and needed to make change. Well, I felt like I got the opportunity to look at everything in my life, my personal well-being, family dynamics, my business, like everything, and redesign it, reimagine it from a really high level. And I invited my wife to do this too. And we sat down and we got to do that. And we saw some things that were eye-openers. We saw things that we couldn't unsee anymore. And we made the decision to make change, to live, to be in that change. It doesn't mean that the environment's instantly going to change itself. But I did know, if we are going to be this way, then the environment will conform itself to our being, not the other way around. And the only way for us to do that is to have these, what we call values, you can call it a manifesto, whatever it is, and size it up with decisions that we need to make in our lives, such as is going back to Asheville, in alignment with that. And when we did that, the answer was obviously no. Like, we don't know what the situation is. Is the running water actually clean? I mean, they had reported that there was an increased amount of lead that was in the water. And then 2 days later, they said it was all right, it's drinkable, it's potable now. So I don't know. Didn't feel good about that. Feel good about the air quality. And more importantly, bringing my daughter back to see the devastation. Like, I don't think a 7-year-old should see that. That's just my opinion. So I chose not to do that. And we thought being somewhere else was the better move. And at the time, we've spent a lot of our time in Wilmington, and we decided that we're going to stay here and give it a shot. So this is where we are now in Wilmington. And we have an opportunity to, once again, recreate, redesign, rebuild, reclaim the life that we want at the highest order. And it made me realize that not only am I not here to just get by and survive. The only way for me to live truly in my purpose is for me to put myself in position to prosper and to achieve and to fulfill at the highest level so I can inspire other people to do the same. I mean, that has always been my mission, always, to help men and some women impact their lives in every aspect of it. That's it. So where does that leave us? Well, I'm getting settled in. I'm unpacking and trying to get to some semblance of grounding while I'm here. But I wanted to share 5 lessons that I learned from this experience in hopes that you can find ways to apply these lessons to your life, whether you're going through crisis yourself, or if you're actually in a pretty great place in your life, maybe these lessons can help elevate it to a whole nother level. So the first lesson is that, gratitude is the foundation of resilience. I mean, to not have running water, to not be able to shower, to wash dishes, to do laundry, to do all kinds of things that we just don't really think about. It just happens. And being able to drink water, it created a level of gratitude to have a house that didn't wash away, a house that didn't have a tree in it. It created a level of basic gratitude that allowed me to see the possibilities of how to be resilient in the face of crisis. And I will say this, when the storm hit and I was pushed to ask for support, I was overwhelmed by the generosity of the people who showed up locally, regionally, nationally, in some cases internationally. And they didn't show up just for me. They showed up for me and my family. And my family got to experience it too, which made me it gave me such a fire that I felt really fulfilled that the people that I know in the time that, and by the way, it was edgy for me to even ask for help and support. And you guys showed up for me so much. And to have my family be the beneficiary and to witness the support that they were able to receive, I'll never forget that. And, from people who drove hours to come get us and help us to people, total strangers who donated their time and energy and resources. Like, it reminded me of the power of community and how important it is for us to be in community, whatever that's supposed to look like. Gratitude was a practice that I have always been practicing for years, but it leveled me up in a way that made me appreciate the basics of what I had. Like, I can always get into the complexities of what I get to have, but being able to wake up, I'm grateful for that. Being able to have a voice and to use it, I'm grateful for that. Being able to see and look into the camera and see people that have eyes that I can look through, I'm grateful for that. Grateful for water, electricity, shelter. Grateful for all these basic things. And sometimes we do take these for granted. And when I lost those things, I certainly appreciated having a warm shower. I was in there for 20 minutes, just on the verge of tears because I was so grateful for the fact that I was able to take a shower again. Gratitude during a time like this is a reminder that no matter how dark things get, there's always light in the form of the people who love us and take care of us. And those people give and love on you so you can use that energy and power to bounce back from whatever adversity you're going through, making gratitude the foundation of resilience. It's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is the meaning of life is the meaning we give it. That is truly the part that we have control over, because life is just going to happen. Life is just going to life. And you get to choose two things. One is, well, decide. Let me go back to that. You get to decide two things. One is, what does it mean? And two, how are you going to experience it? And I realized I can't control what happens. I can't stop a hurricane from taking place anywhere. Even here at this new place. In fact, we're probably more likely to experience weather systems being close to the coast than we would inland. But I can't control any of that. But I can control when things happen in my life, I can control what it means to me. The hurricane wasn't just a disaster. It was a wake-up call for me. And I decided to frame this experience not as a tragedy, but a turning point. I decided that. And when we take charge of the meaning, we reclaim our power. We no longer become powerless. We can become powerful. And it all is dependent on the meaning that you choose to take. You decide. You get to decide that. I made a decision that there was no other possibility in the meaning of this, that this was designed to make me a better person for my family and for my clients and perhaps for you. That was a decision that I make, and I have committed to that. There's no other possibility. I can't imagine a God that would allow devastation and not have something miraculous be equally as powerful on the other side. I just can't imagine that. So that's it. That's the decision. There's something magical to come from that if we decide. I've decided. You get to decide too. Lesson number 3. Life is about thriving. It's not about surviving. I didn't realize how much I was proving to myself and other people that I was a survivor until this happened. Subconsciously, I was doing things that was showing me or proving to me and others that I can make it. I can survive. And that just completely did the point. From rethinking my priorities to let me rephrase that. Survival is just a baseline. That is a divine gift that has been given to us as a baseline. And it is our responsibility and our duty to build on top of that baseline. The real challenge, the real opportunity that I see is to thrive, to expand, to take every experience, even the hard ones, and use them as stepping stones to a better version of ourselves. Outside of that, we're just wasting our time. If you're not looking to expand in as many areas of your life as possible, what are you doing here? Simple. And if you need support for that, there's places where you can go to get the support to give you the structure and the guidance to help you expand in those areas of your life. You don't need to figure out the how. The how will take place, but you don't have to do it alone. More on that in a bit. Number 4, simplicity is prosperity. This was something that I was saying to myself throughout this whole process, helping me get really clear that in times of crisis and in times of prosperity, it's simplicity that brings the magic. And during the chaos, when we were going from, one house to another house, and we're staying in a hotel, and we went to Jamaica to visit my family as they were celebrating, my parents, as they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. That was planned way in advance. But we had to simplify our lives. I mean, we were living out of suitcases for the whole time, traveling with them, trying to, dumb things down and simplify them in a way that can allow us to live our lives as simply as possible. It made me realize that my priorities were not in alignment the way that they could have been. And it forced me, and it forced my family, and I know it forced so many people who experienced this to let go of so many things. There was so much death and grief, both literal and figurative, that was experienced during this process. And for us, there was so much letting go. We had to let things die. There was dreams that we had to let die, which was so hard because we're constantly experiencing the grief of the loss and going through that process. It was such a challenge. But through prayer and reflection and using tools like my journal, I've learned that when we focus on what truly matters, we create room for prosperity in every sense of the word. And it's driven by the simplicity of the moment, the simplicity of our priorities, the simplicity of our essence. And so I continue to say simplicity is prosperity. And number 5, trust the bigger plan. I call this experience the ultimate trust fall. This was the ultimate trust fall. I had no choice but to trust this process and let it unfold the way that it was meant to. I had to let go of all possibility of control in what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, where it was going to happen from. Asheville was supposed to be our permanent home. We loved it so much that we were starting the process of finding it. And that doesn't mean that it's completely gone, but it's certainly not here. And that was a devastating loss for us. When that was taken away, I struggled to understand like the why. And I can get in my head and trying to figure out what the why was about. Why did this happen? But in that conversation and many conversations with God, like I just realized that God is always doing for me what I can't do for myself. Whatever that plan is, it's much bigger than my imagination. And whatever plan he has, much better than my plan. And I'm embracing it now. So instead of trying to control and play this tug of war or being dragged, kicking and screaming towards my destiny, I've embraced change. I embrace the challenge. I embrace the adversity that is required to go through. And I look forward to the opportunities that lie before me. This challenge has clearly prepared me for something much bigger that I may not even be aware of. That's the only reason to go through adversity anyways. It's meant to not just test you, but to prepare you for the next opportunity that lies before you that you couldn't have qualified without going through that adversity. I don't know what that is, but I do know that I'm ready for whatever that is because I managed to go through this situation with a very different paradigm. A new perspective. I mean, in some ways, I feel like a completely different person as a result of it, as I'm sure many people who've gone through this feel the same. All of this, these lessons, this whole experience has completely reshaped my life. I hope this resonates with you, and whether you're facing a literal storm or a figurative storm or a spiritual storm in your life, or just you're going through the day-to-day challenges, trying to no longer survive, but to find a means to thrive. I want you to remember gratitude, meaning, thriving, simplicity, trust. These 5 things can transform any situation. And one of the things that I noticed, here's a little bonus, is each of those 5 things, before experiencing the lesson, what I heard in my mind was actually the opposite. There was a part of me that was telling me that I couldn't do this, that I couldn't help my family, I couldn't guide my family, I couldn't lead my family, that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't ready, that I can't trust this, what am I being grateful for? I can't determine the meaning. I'm not, I don't have the capacity to thrive. Things always have to be complicated. All these stories were coming up. And what I realized was that was my inner imposter that believes that I'm a fraud, that I'm not ready for these opportunities. And let me tell you, I spent a lot of time with my inner imposter and had to have conversations and figure out, where does the real fear come from? And how do we leverage this into my greatest asset that can help me get through this? My imposter wants to tell me I'm not good enough to achieve what it is that I set out to do. And that same inner imposter is the source of my greatest power to achieve the things that I set out to do. There was no question in my mind once I came to resolution that I was going to help my family and lead my family to a better place. No question in my mind. I never once thought about it. Sure, it was challenging and stressful at times, but I never questioned it once I became resolute. And plenty of people have asked me in the aftermath, like, what made you believe that? What made you so calm in some of these moments that I would have freaked out about? And the answer was simple. There was no other option. I didn't give myself a choice. I decided that this was my path and my role in this, and I'm just going to show up and experience it to the best of my ability. So perhaps as you go through this storm in your life, there might be an imposter. An inner imposter is trying to tell you that you can't do this. You're not capable of it. You're not lovable enough. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. All these things that are just meant to hold you back from you being the best version of yourself. Well, in light of this experience, what I decided to do is I wanted to create a resource that can allow you to not only get to know your true inner imposter, but to be able to identify it, to really name it. Because what I've found is when we name and identify things, it creates not only a better understanding, but it opens the door to create a deeper relationship with that thing. So we can understand its strengths, the things that, and then its opposite. I wouldn't want to necessarily call it weaknesses, but points of awareness to be mindful of that can show up. And when you can bring those subconscious things to the conscious, all of a sudden now you have the ability to better manage your inner imposter. And dare I say, turn your inner imposter into your greatest asset. So if you want to know your inner imposter and potentially the silent killer of your experience of success and fulfillment and achievement, go to innerimposter.com and you'll have a quiz. You can answer a few questions. And not only will you receive the name of your inner imposter, you're also going to receive a PDF that you can download that'll go deeper into where this imposter comes from, what it likes to do, when it likes to do it, and things that you can do to better manage it and turn it not just into something that holds you back, but now a powerful tool that you can use to get you to the next level in your life. So if you want to take that quiz, go to innerimposter.com, take the quiz, and then you'll get that PDF that'll help you identify what's holding you back and how you can overcome it. And one thing that I'm really excited about is in this, I'm now setting a new standard for how I'm working with my clients, the kind of community of clients that I want to work with, the type of people that I want to work with. And in light of that, I'm actually going to be launching a brand new program that you'll learn about in the coming weeks. So really excited. Go to Inner Imposter, take that quiz. I'm looking forward to sharing more lessons that I've learned from this experience, but also why the inner imposter is so rampant in our lives and what are the things that we can do to overcome it so we can finally no longer feel like we are subjected to scarcity and survival, but we can actually thrive and be prosperous and abundant so we can inspire more people to do the same. Society has programmed us that we are not as good as we believe we are, and I believe that is untrue. We are better than we believe we are. And with the right people around us, with the right tools and the right path, you can actually experience it. And we need more people to step up and lead so other people can see it too and start to question what they're capable of so they can go out and achieve amazing things in the world. So I hope this has really served you. And if you have any questions or if you want to comment and share, I waited a little long to share this story, but I knew it needed to come out and I had to wait because I wanted to make sure this was clear. And I wanted you to learn from my experience so that way you can, when you face your storm, you can go through it with the same intensity and the same power and the same grit and the same resilience that I managed to go through it in my own personal experience. So until the next time, I'll see you soon.